Welcome to the Exploring Neurodiversity podcast for adults who support neurodivergent children. I'm Adina from Play, Learn, Chat. I'm an autistic ADHD speech therapist, professional educator, speaker, and I also support neurodivergent business owners in my other business, Neurodivergent Business Coaching and Consulting. I'm obsessed with creating a world where neurodivergent people are understood, embraced, supported, and can thrive in a life aligned with our individual strengths, wants, and needs. I bring a neurodiversity affirming approach and indeed a human affirming approach to the support that we all provide for neurodivergent kids in our lives. This podcast is recorded on the Aboriginal lands of the Gadigal and Bidjigal people. I'm going to be unpacking the Autistic's Guide to Adulthood, which is a free online resource that was recently promoted by NDIS. So here's the background about the resource. And I will say, when I first looked at it, and I recorded most of what you're going to hear in this podcast on my Instagram stories, it actually confused me because of the way that NDIS shared the link to the resource. I mistakenly thought it was an NDIS created resource, and that in itself is problematic. So I did clarify that in my stories as I figured out more details about who was behind it. And so here it is. So it was created by Autism South Australia in 2019. So already, as I record this, it's 6 years old, and that is important. It needs an update. It was backed by funding from the ILC program, which is the Information Linkages and Capacity Building funding stream within NDIS that looks to promote community resources rather than, direct supports. So it's not a direct NDIS created resource. It is, however, endorsed and funded by an arm of NDIS. So now we've got the background that's clarified. Here's the problem. When something comes wrapped in a government endorsed seal and stamp and it looks nice and polished, or when it's from a big organization, it might be good and it might not be. And by good, I mean neurodiversity affirming, human affirming, genuinely supportive in what it shares. So here's the question. Does the Autistic's Guide to Adulthood actually promote and share useful affirming information for autistic adults? Maybe. We're going to find out. What I want to demonstrate with this podcast episode and with everything I was sharing on Instagram last week as I was digging through the guide, I want you to be a critical thinker of anything that comes across your social media, anything that comes across your desk, your email, whatever you receive, even if it's from me. You need to have a critical mindset. Just because something has a big shiny seal of approval from a big government body, it may or may not actually be a quality resource. And this critical thinking is not always easy. Well, it's not. It simply isn't. It takes a deep understanding of what neurodiversity affirming approaches are. And it takes a deep knowing and listening to a variety of diverse autistic perspectives to understand what is actually going to help us. So as you come across any particular resource or idea or strategy or program, you need to step back and ask who created it. When was it created? What are the values that it reflects? Were people with diverse lived experience involved in creating this resource? Does it honour genuine autistic communication and self-expression in ways that show up differently for different people? Does it push masking and compliance and squash us down and try to make us fit into little neurotypical boxes? So what I'm going to share with you shortly is a slightly edited version of what I put on my Instagram stories as I was digging through the communication module of the Autistic's Guide to Adulthood. I'm just going to go out and say it. I'm not going to make it a cliffhanger to the end. I don't recommend this. I don't recommend this resource. But I want you to hear my process, my thought process through it. And I won't say it's all bad, and it's also not all good. I'm going to share with you where it falls short of neurodiversity affirming approaches and how it can be harmful, and some ideas for how the topics covered could be shared in a more affirming way. Because it's not just about me getting enraged about a workbook that has typos and really bad ideas and graphics. I do get a little bit excitable. I don't know if it's enraged. It was a little Friday afternoon vibe. I want you to see this is what happens when systemic government-funded resources that are put up on a pedestal continue to reinforce outdated, non-affirming approaches. It's too easy to look at these resources and think, oh, well, they're official, so they must be good. No. So come with me on a journey. We're going to dive into the Autistic's Guide to Adulthood communication module. and I'll share some of my thoughts. And at the end, I'll come back full circle and tell you more about how else I could help you develop your critical thinking and your neurodiversity affirming skills and knowledge and confidence to really understand what is and what isn't neurodiversity affirming. And, it's not necessarily that simple. It's a process of learning. Let's dive into the guide. NDIS has promoted the Autistics Guide to Adulthood resource, free. I am, I'll be honest, not hopeful. I'm curious though. Let's go curious. So I've signed up and I'm going to see what it's all about. The first thing I'm going to call out is, so I'm a course creator and I know about platforms and usability, and I also experience life as an autistic adult. Many of us take things very literally and don't go well with new things or confusing things. Here, if you go to skills in this nationally endorsed funded program, there's these skills, 5 pages of them. I nearly said that's probably 100, and it's confusing. So if I go to compliance awareness, I'm like, what is that doing in a course for autistic adults? I think it's just like a standard thing that came with the template or something. And you go to external resources and there's all these like Google link, very confusing. So that's thrown me off. Attention to detail. Oh, interesting. Attention to detail enables professionals to meticulously examine information, blah, 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 blah. What's going on there? Like, I don't understand what this whole section is and all these Google things. So that's thrown me. I'll just leave that thought there. These are the modules available. So we've got romantic relationships, communication, physical health, self-advocacy, education, entertainment, recreation and leisure, friendship, living independently, employment and mental health. That's a decent start. Seems okay. I'm okay with these. I decided to go straight into the communication module because that is one of my areas of expertise. So let's have a look. Here's the communication workbook. Look, I'm not going to say it's all terrible, but it's not great. Here's an example of something that is terrible. I haven't watched the modules that go along with it, but according to the workbook, it's incredibly prescriptive about what facial expressions are and mean without acknowledging the fact that many people have different expressions. Many people may hide or not be able to show their expressions in these expected ways or in these ways. And by showing the expressions and body language in such a one-dimensional way, like this is bored, this is open to a conversation, it's incredibly unaffirming. It's incredibly unhelpful. All it's going to do is reinforce neurotypical norms and reinforce the fact that autistic people are supposed to be looking for only a very narrow band of what is sad and being very literal about looking for that particular facial expression. Maybe the video models are different, but there doesn't seem to be wiggle room for nuance or difference. This page here on big emotions screams to me that it's promoting masking. So what it's saying, reflection activity, big emotions, and it's got a few examples. Happy, someone laughing, jumping around and yelling. Sad, someone sobbing loudly. Angry, someone screaming, yelling and threatening others. Excited, someone jumping up and down on tables. Loving, 2 people passionately kissing each other. Choose a big emotion scenario from the above list and write down how you would feel if you saw someone doing this in public in front of you. You may also like to write down an alternative way a person could show their big emotion. Again, I haven't gone to the module that I assume goes along with this, so maybe there's more nuance and maybe it's handled very sensitively. To me, this workbook page is saying that if somebody expresses their big emotions in these ways, for example, the autistic person completing this course, this is shaming them, trying to direct them to recognize that that may be wrong or may offend other people. All of this so far has been about the autistic person changing to accommodate other people rather than other people learning to understand the autistic person or the autistic person understanding themselves more and understanding that their different way of expressing things is valid for them. So the more in-depth content is not better, like I kind of hoped it might have been. This section on small talk is pretty rough. Apparently, most people don't really like small talk. So that's kind of okay in a way. It sort of validates the fact that small talk might be not fun for many people. I don't know if that's true, that most people don't like it. I would say maybe most autistic people don't like it. But what's not here, anywhere in the top 90% of the page, is anything about it being okay to have a different preference for how to communicate. It's got instructions for how to make small talk. Never mind the fact that you may not like it.
do it anyway. And here's how you do it. And a last little afterthought says small talk and autism. Many autistics feel as though talking about things they do not connect with can feel unnatural and appear forced. This can be very draining on your energy. If you feel this way, just take from this section what helps you and leave what does not. Remember, everyone is different and that is okay. Now, that statement and information is helpful. It should not be an afterthought. At minimum, it should be moved to the very top to outline and preface this whole section. But I actually don't think that's anywhere near enough. What needs to be shared, so like what am I hoping for, is an understanding that there are different ways of communicating, that some people do small talk, some don't, and there might be times to do it. And there might be times to advocate for yourself that you don't want to do small talk and that it's okay not to. And maybe there are some strategies that we can teach how people can not do small talk. Maybe there are energy management strategies that are outlined very clearly that go around this idea. It's good that it's calling out the fact that small talk is, not for everyone, but this is missing the mark in so many ways. Let's have a look at this section. Having interests you're passionate about. I had a sinking feeling that this would be problematic, and so it's a mix. Okay, I'll give them credit. So it talks about the fact that you can have hobbies, special interests, passions, and that can be good. Then it kind of heads into cautious mode. Things like spelling out that you might have to consider if something is an unusual interest. That is such a subjective thing. What I do appreciate is that it talks about finding other people who share your interests. Like, that's good. Good. Hooray. I was not looking forward to reading this. Over talking. While having passions and interests is important, sometimes we're really interested in and passionate about something. It can be easy to lose track of time and talk too much about it. Too much. Over talking. These are judgment phrases. They are neurotypical judgments that we are now placing on the autistic adults reading this to, again, shame us into making us feel that we are wrong and the way that we want to think, process, and share is the problem. Now, the double empathy problem tells us that it goes two ways. Non-autistic people need to understand that autistic people have different ways of connecting. And sometimes that means skipping over small talk and going straight into special interests. Also, I like straight talking. It's a fairly common autistic feature. I think it's really, really important to spell it out to people and say things like, I don't have the bandwidth to chat about this right now. They do call this out. This is nice. Sometimes someone may give us an obvious outright cue to change the topic. Okay, I've had enough talking about this now. That to me reads like a nice, autistic phrase, which neurotypicals may take that very harshly. I would really like that because I don't have to read between the lines. Look, there's so much to communication. There's so much about tone of voice and body language and facial expressions, hedging comments and masking. And, it's very complicated. This resource is completely missing the mark by putting the full burden on autistic people to do the changing and to do all the hiding and to continue to judge ourselves the way that society has tried to put on us for a very, very, very long time, to judge ourselves that we are over talking, that we are the problem and that our natural tendency is the problem. It's not. Okay, while I have so much more to say about the Autistic's Guide to Adulthood resource promoted and paid for by NDIS, I'm going to switch to the positive for a moment. I'm going to share a wonderful example of if you're an autistic adult or an autistic adult and you want to give them a really affirming way of learning about yourself and how to navigate life, I strongly recommend my good friend Steph's Embracing You course. I'm going to link to it because she's a gem. Everything she teaches is absolutely about dismantling this ableist, non-neuro-affirming, masking, hiding, shame-based approach, which the Autistic's Guide to Adulthood resource seems to be promoting. So there you have it. That was my little tour inside the Autistic's Guide to Adulthood. As I said, I don't endorse this. I don't recommend this resource. I do recommend that you find support resources and information from neurodiversity affirming autistic adults and children to really help you learn and understand the nuances around neurodiversity affirming approaches. So whether you're supporting autistic adults yourself, perhaps, whether you're supporting autistic children, the concepts are the same. And I really hope that you will continue your journey of learning and critical thinking. To help you on this path, I have a free checklist, Neurodiversity Affirming Social Support Approaches for Autistic Children.
all of the themes that we've talked about from the Autistics Guide to Adulthood, these wouldn't pass most of the points of my checklist. It's the same points. How are we supporting people to have a genuine connection, to be genuinely honored for their true selves, to find connection with other people who are like-minded, who respect them for who they are, perhaps share interests, enjoy each other's communication style. Most of the time we're still human. It doesn't always go smooth. That's okay. But we need to be pushing supports, therapies, strategies, resources that allow autistic people to thrive in their autistic selves rather than trying to change us to fit into that neuronormative box. So keep going on your critical thinking journey. Please don't just assume that because something is officially endorsed or promoted or very shiny that it is best practice. It might be and it might not be. You can grab my free checklist, the Neurodiversity Affirming Social Support Approaches for Autistic Children. The link is in the show notes. And if you are ready for a deeper dive into learning about neurodiversity affirming practice, my Neurodiversity Affirming Practice Learning Hub bundle is already discounted. It bundles together most of my key webinars and workshops. That's for professionals who support neurodivergent children. It is already discounted, so you can also get an extra 10% off with the code POD10, P-O-D, and numerals 10. All that info is in the show notes. Don't feel that you have to remember it. Thank you so much for joining me and for choosing to think critically in your journey to figuring out how you can best support autistic people. Thank you for being open to learning and unlearning and to listening to the perspectives and experiences of neurodivergent folks. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend, share a screenshot on Instagram, pop a 5-star rating and a review in your favourite app, and join me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm at play.learn.chat. Have a beautiful day.